The coronation ceremony had been underway for 3 hours when King Theron first felt a pull in his chest so violent it nearly drove him to his knees. "Your Majesty?" High Counselor Gavril leaned forward from his position beside the throne. "Is something wrong?" Theron gripped the armrests of his ancient seat, his knuckles white beneath his ceremonial rings. The sensation came again, stronger this time, not pain exactly, but something far more disturbing. It felt as though invisible hooks had lodged themselves behind his ribs, yanking downward with increasing insistence. "I need air," he managed, though even as he spoke, he knew air wasn't what his body screamed for. The great hall buzzed with nearly 1,000 guests, all gathered to witness the formal recognition of his kingship after his father's death. Wolf-blood nobility from every territory, their eyes gleaming amber in the candlelight as they waited for him to complete the ancient rites. He couldn't leave. Not now. Another pull. So fierce his vision blurred. "Down," something primal whispered in his mind. "Go down." "My king." Gavril's voice grew concerned. "Perhaps we should postpone—" "No." Theron forced himself upright, but his wolf, usually so controlled, was clawing at his consciousness with increasing desperation. In 30 years of life, he'd never felt his beast fight him this way. "Continue with the ceremony. I'll return shortly." He rose from the throne, and the crowd's murmur of confusion followed him as he strode toward the hall's side entrance. His personal guard, Captain Darius, fell into step beside him. "Sire, where are we going?" Theron didn't know. His feet moved of their own accord, following that terrible pull through corridors he'd walked since childhood. Down the main stairs, past the kitchens, deeper. "The old passages, Your Majesty?" Darius sounded alarmed. "But those lead to the foundation chambers." Theron's voice came out rough, barely human. The pull was becoming agony. Now, his wolf howling inside his skull. Something's wrong. They descended stone steps that grew older with each level, from polished marble to rough-hewn rock. The air grew thick, musty with centuries of disuse. These passages predated the current castle by generations, built when the first Alpha Kings ruled through blood and brutality. "Sire, no one's been down here in decades. It's not safe." Theron rounded on his captain, and whatever Darius saw in his eyes made him step back. "There's someone down here. That's not possible. These chambers have been sealed since—" A sound cut through the darkness. Faint, almost inaudible even to Theron's enhanced hearing. Breathing. Labored, rattling breathing. Theron's wolf went completely feral. He ran, abandoning all pretense of control, following passages he'd never explored. His hands traced the walls, finding a warmth that shouldn't exist in these cold depths. The breathing grew louder, punctuated by something else, a heartbeat. Slow, too slow, fading. The passage ended at an iron door marked with symbols that made his skin crawl. Old magic. Binding magic. The kind the modern kingdom had outlawed centuries ago. "What is this place?" Darius whispered. Theron didn't answer. He gripped the door's handle, and pain shot up his arm, wolfsbane embedded in the metal. He pulled anyway, his palm sizzling, but the door held firm. Ancient locks, designed to hold something in. Or someone. The heartbeat beyond the door stuttered. With a roar that was pure alpha, Theron shifted partially, his hand becoming a massive claw that tore through the iron like paper. The door shrieked as he ripped it from its hinges. The chamber beyond was pitch black, but his wolf eyes pierced the darkness easily. What he saw drove him to his knees. A figure lay crumpled against the far wall, chains at wrists and ankles. Female, though so emaciated he could count every rib through her tattered dress. Her hair, probably once golden, hung in filthy strands around a face that might have been beautiful before starvation carved it to bone. But it was her eyes that destroyed him. Violet eyes, enormous in her skeletal face, staring at him with a mixture of terror and desperate hope. "Please," she whispered, her voice like broken glass. "Please don't hurt me anymore." Theron's hands shook as he approached. The chains were wolfsbane lace too, and where they touched her skin, they'd left wounds that wouldn't heal. How long had she been here? Who had done this? "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly, fighting to keep his wolf from emerging fully. It wanted to destroy everything, Everyone who'd allowed this to happen. I'm going to get you out. She tried to pull back as he reached for the chains, a whimper escaping her throat. No, please. I've been good. I haven't used it. Not once. I swear. Used what? But even as he asked, he felt it power radiating from her in waves despite her weakened state. Not wolf power. Something else. Something that made his wolf wild with recognition. Mate, his beast howled. Mate. No. That was beyond belief. He'd searched for years, attended every gathering, met every eligible wolf-blooded female in the kingdom. His mate didn't exist. Yet here she was, dying in chains beneath his own castle. Theron's claws sliced through the chains, ignoring the burn of wolfsbane. She collapsed forward, and he caught her, his arms cradling her skeletal frame. She weighed nothing. How long had it been since she'd eaten? Who did this to you? He growled. Her violet eyes fluttered. The council said I was an abomination. Wrong blood. Dangerous. Her breath rattled. They said the ceremony would purify the kingdom, that my sacrifice would... Her eyes rolled back, her body going limp. No. Theron pressed his ear to her chest. The heartbeat was barely there. A whisper of sound. Darius, get the healers, now. But the ceremony. Forget the damned ceremony. Theron gathered her against his chest, standing in one fluid motion. Someone chained my mate beneath the castle and left her to die. Darius went pale. Your mate? But she's not wolf. Blood. I can smell it. She's mine. Theron snarled. She's mine, and she's dying. He ran, carrying her through the passages, up the stairs, her head lolling against his shoulder. With each step, her breathing grew shallower. By the time he reached the main halls, he could barely hear her heartbeat at all. The ceremony guests scattered as their newly crowned king burst through the doors, covered in blood and burns, carrying what looked like a corpse. Healer Lysander, Theron roared. Now! The elderly healer rushed forward, his hands already glowing with healing light. He pressed them to her chest, then yanked back as if burned. Your Majesty, he whispered. This woman, she's been cursed. Repeatedly. For years. And she's... He paused, his face going ashen. She's something that shouldn't exist. I don't care what she is, Theron said. Save her. I'll try, but... Lysander's hands hovered over her body. Sire, if she's what I think she is, the council will demand. The council? Theron's voice dropped to deadly quiet. Will answer for why my mate was tortured beneath my own throne room. As if responding to his words, the girl's eyes fluttered open. For one moment they locked with his violet meeting gold. Then her body began to convulse. Sarah hadn't dreamed in 5 years. In the darkness below, dreams required hope, and hope had been the first thing the chains had stolen from her. But now she floated in warmth, real warmth, and voices circled above her like anxious birds. Beyond belief. No one survives that much wolfsbane exposure. She's not purely human, look at her blood. It's literally silver. The king refuses to leave her side. King? The word pierced through her fog. The king was the one who'd ordered her imprisonment. The king was no different king. The old one had died. She'd felt it through the stones, the castle's mourning as power shifted from father to son. How long ago? Days? Weeks? Time meant nothing in the dark. Her eyes cracked open, and immediately she wished they hadn't. Light, blessed and terrible light, everywhere. After years of absolute darkness, even candlelight felt like staring into the Sunday. She tried to raise her hand to shield her face, but her arm wouldn't respond. Nothing would respond. She's awake, a young woman's voice excited. Your Majesty, she's... Leave us. That voice, deep, commanding, making something in her chest tighten with recognition. She'd heard it in the darkness, felt it rumble through his chest when he'd carried her. The new king, the one who'd found her. Chairs scraped, footsteps retreated, a door closed. Then, silence except for breathing his and hers. Can you speak? Softer now, that commanding voice. Careful, Sarah tried. Her throat felt like she'd swallowed sand and glass. Water? Movement. the trickle of liquid, then a hand behind her head, impossibly gentle for its size, lifting her just enough to press a cup to her lips. The water tasted like life itself. Slowly, he murmured, "Your body's been dormant too long." When she'd drunk what she could manage, he lowered her back. She forced her eyes fully open, blinking through tears as they adjusted. He sat beside her bed, and even half-blind, she could tell he was magnificent. Enormous frame, dark hair falling past his shoulders, and eyes that gleamed gold even in daylight. Power radiated from him in waves that made her inner light flicker in response. Those golden eyes widened. "You're glowing." Sarah looked down. Her skin, paper-thin from starvation, emanated a soft silver luminescence. Horror flooded through her. "No, no, no." She tried to pull it back, to force the light down as she'd been trained. "I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Please don't send me back. Please, stop." His hand covered hers and the cum for Minazet and Taulas. Touch sent electricity through her entire body. "No one's sending you anywhere. You're safe." "Safe?" She almost laughed. "I'm a light caster in the kingdom of wolves. There's no such thing as safe." His jaw tightened. "How long were you down there?" "Since my 16th birthday, when the light first manifested." The words came easier now, though each one hurt. "The old king said I was contamination, that my kind had been eliminated for a reason." "How old are you now?" Sarah closed her eyes. "I stopped counting after the 3rd year, but I think 21, maybe 22. She felt him go very still. 6 years. You were chained in darkness for 6 years. "It was supposed to be an execution," she whispered. "But I wouldn't die. The council tried everything. Poison, starvation, wolfsbane. But the light kept healing me. So they decided to wait. Let the darkness eat me slowly." His growl made the windows rattle. "The council knew. My father knew. And no one." He cut himself off, visibly fighting for control. "Why did you come for me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "I felt you dying. Through here." He pressed his fist to his chest. "My wolf went mad. I couldn't breathe until I found you." Sarah's eyes widened. "That's not possible. I'm not wolf blood. I can't be your mate." He said it simply, finally. "You are my mate, beyond belief or not." The word hung between them like a challenge to fate itself. "The council will never accept this," she said. "The council will accept what I tell them to accept. You don't understand." Desperation crept into her voice. "Lightcasters and wolves are natural enemies. My light can burn through your kind like acid. That's why they eliminated us. That's why—" "Show me." She blinked. "What?" "Your light. Show me what it does. I could hurt you." His lips quirked, not quite a smile. "Little star, you can barely lift your own hand. I think I'll survive." The endearment made her chest ache. Slowly, carefully, she let the light build in her palm. It sparked silver, white, beautiful, and terrible. Theron extended his hand toward it. "Don't." His fingers passed through the light. She waited for his scream, for the sizzle of burning flesh. Instead, his eyes went wide with wonder. "It's warm. That's not—" She stared at their joined hands, her light dancing harmlessly over his skin. "You should be in agony. The only agony," he said quietly, "was feeling you die while I sat on that throne, playing king." Before she could respond, the door burst open. A guard rushed in, face pale with panic. "Your Majesty, the council demands your presence. They're calling for the girl's immediate execution." Theron stood slowly, and the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Is that so?" His voice was soft, deadly. "They say she's an abomination, that her presence here will curse the kingdom. They've invoked the old law." Sarah's heart stopped. The old law allowed the council to override even the king in matters of species purity. Theron looked back at her, and his eyes held a promise that made her breath catch. "Then I'll invoke an older law." He turned to the guard. "Tell the council I'm bringing my mate to the throne room, and if anyone so much as looks at her wrong, I'll paint the walls with their blood." The guard fled. "What older law?" Sarah whispered. But Theron was already lifting her from the bed, cradling her against his chest. The law of true mates, he said. They can't execute you if you're claimed. Her blood went cold. Claimed means marked, bonded, mine in every way that matters. His eyes blazed gold. The question is whether you trust me enough to try. The throne room erupted the moment Theron carried Sarah through the doors. Abomination. She'll curse us all. Kill it before it spreads its poison. Theron's growl silenced them all. He walked through the crowd of nobles and counselors, each step deliberate, his arms never wavering despite Sarah's trembling. She pressed her face into his neck, trying to hide from the hundreds of eyes that burned with hatred. Don't look at them, he murmured against her hair. Look at me. She lifted her head, meeting his golden gaze, and for a moment the crowd disappeared. Then High Counselor Gavriel's voice cut through the silence like a blade. King Theron, while we rejoice in your finding of your mate, surely you can see the impossibility here. This creature is a lightcaster, the last of her kind for good reason. Our laws are clear. Your laws, Theron said, settling onto his throne with Sarah still in his arms, condemned an innocent girl to 6 years of torture. She is not innocent. Counselor Malwick stepped forward, his scarred face twisted with disgust. I bear the marks of what her kind can do. He pulled aside his collar, revealing burn scars that looked like lightning strikes. Lightcasters killed dozens of our kind in the old wars, and wolves killed thousands of theirs, Theron countered. Yet here she sits, having harmed no one, having spent 6 years in chains for the crime of existing. She cannot be your true mate, Gavriel insisted. It's biologically unthinkable. She has no wolf. She cannot shift. She cannot... Cannot what? Theron's voice dropped dangerously. Cannot love? Cannot bond? Cannot bear young? His arms tightened around Sarah. Or cannot be controlled by you? The accusation hung heavy in the air. Test her, someone called from the crowd. If she's truly your mate, let her prove it. How? Theron demanded. Gavriel smiled coldly. The moon trial. Let her touch the sacred stone. If she's truly meant for you, the stone will accept her. If not, he shrugged, it will reveal the truth. Sarah felt Theron tense. She didn't know what the sacred stone was, but from his reaction, it wasn't good. The sacred stone hasn't been used in a century, he said. Because there hasn't been a questioned mating in a century, Gavriel countered. Unless you're afraid of what it will show? Trap. This was clearly a trap. But Theron was already standing. Bring it. The crowd parted as 2 guards carried in an obsidian pedestal topped with a sphere that seemed to absorb light. Even from across the room, Sarah could feel its power, ancient, hungry, decidedly hostile to her presence. The stone will burn anything that doesn't belong to the wolf bloodline, Gavriel announced, loud enough for all to hear. If she is your true mate, it will recognize her through your bond. If not, I know what it does, Theron snapped. He looked down at Sarah. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. If I don't, they'll never stop. He carried her to the stone, each step heavy with dread. As they drew closer, Sarah's skin began to tingle, then burn. The stone didn't just reject her, it actively hated her existence. Your hand on the stone, Gavriel, instructed, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Sarah extended her skeletal hand, watching it tremble. The moment her palm touched the obsidian surface, agony exploded through every nerve. She didn't scream. She'd learned long ago that screaming only made it worse. But her light erupted involuntarily, silver-white energy coursing over her skin in desperate self-defense. The stone began to crack. Unthinkable, someone breathed. The crack spread, spider-webbing across the surface as Sarah's light poured into it. She couldn't stop. The stone was pulling her power out, draining her, but also changing. Look! A young wolf pointed. The obsidian was transforming, black giving way to silver, as if her light was purifying it from within. But the drain was too much. She felt her life force following her light into the stone. Stop! Theron roared, but her hand was frozen to the surface. This was how she'd die, not in darkness below, but here in the light, proving she didn't belong. Then, Theron's hand covered hers on the stone. The moment their skin touched, everything changed. Power rushed through her, not her own light, but something wild and primitive. Wolf energy, meeting her light and merging with it. The stone exploded. Not cracked, not shattered, completely obliterated. Silver and gold light erupted from where it had been, filling the throne room with radiance beyond description. When it faded, a new stone had formed from the ashes of the old, neither black nor silver, but a swirling fusion of both, pulsing like a heartbeat. Absolute silence. Then Gavril dropped to his knees. The Genesis Stone. It's the Genesis Stone. What? Theron demanded, still holding Sarah upright. Legend says when Wolf and Light unite in perfect balance, they'll create the Genesis Stone, the original source of both bloodlines. Gavril's voice shook. It hasn't existed since the Great Severing, when our kinds split apart. You're saying... I'm saying she's not just your mate, your majesty. She's your perfect match, the one prophesied to reunite what was broken. Gavril looked up at Sarah with something approaching awe. She's the bridge. Before anyone could respond, Sarah's legs gave out. The effort had taken everything she had. Too much, she gasped. Used too much. Her light was flickering, fading. She could feel her body beginning to shut down, the years of torture finally collecting their due. No. Theron's arms tightened around her. You don't get to leave me now. Not when I just found you. Can't. Breathing was becoming unbearable. Can't hold on. Then don't, he said fiercely. Let go. Trust me to catch you. If I let go, the light will do what it's meant to do. His forehead pressed to hers. Stop fighting it, little star. Stop fighting me. Around them, the court watched in stunned silence as their new king held his dying mate, silver light flickering like a candle in wind. Please, Theron whispered, and for the first time, Sarah heard him break. Please don't leave me alone in the dark. The words shattered something in her chest. She'd been alone in the dark for 6 years. She knew that agony intimately. With the last of her strength, she pressed her lips to his throat, right where she could feel his pulse racing. Not alone, she breathed. Never alone again. Then her light exploded outward one final time, not in death, but in transformation. Silver mixed with gold, light with shadow, human with wolf. When it faded, Sarah Nightingale, last of the Lightcasters, was gone. In her place lay something entirely new. Sarah woke to arguing voices and the sensation of floating in liquid starlight. Been 3 days. She should have either transformed or died by now. Look at her, Lysander. Does that look like death to you? She tried to open her eyes but found she couldn't. Not because they were closed, but because she was. Seeing differently. Everything appeared in layers. The physical world, yes, but also streams of energy flowing through everything like rivers of light. Fascinating, the one called Lysander murmured. Her cellular structure is completely rewriting itself. It's neither wolf transformation nor human death. It's evolution, a new voice, female, ancient. The child is becoming what she was always meant to be. Sarah felt movement around her, the energy stream shifting as people repositioned. Through her new sight, Theron appeared as a blazing golden sun, his worry manifesting as dark clouds across his luminescence. Elder Morphia, Theron's voice held desperate respect. Can you help her? Help? The Ancient One laughed. Boy, she doesn't need help. She needs understanding. Do you know what you've done by bringing light and wolf together? Created the Genesis Stone, apparently. No, the stone is just a symbol. You've started something that cannot be stopped. She is the first of something new, and if she survives the becoming, she will change everything. If she survives. The words echoed through Sarah's consciousness. She tried to speak, to move, but her body wasn't responding to her commands anymore. It was busy doing something else, unmaking and remaking itself cell by cell. Why can't she wake up? Theron's hand found hers, and the touch sent cascades of sensation through her transforming nervous system. Because she's fighting it, Elder Morphia said. 6 years of suppressing her light, of forcing herself to be less than she is. Her mind doesn't know how to let go. Then tell me how to reach her. You can't. This battle is hers alone. But, the elder paused, you can show her what waits on the other side. How? The same way you found her in the first place. Follow the bond. Sarah felt Theron's consciousness brush against hers, tentative, uncertain. His thoughts tasted like pine forests and mountain storms. Little star? She tried to respond, but her mental voice was fragmented, scattered across the transformation. I'm scared, she finally managed. I know. His presence wrapped around her like warmth. But you're the bravest person I know. 6 years in darkness and you never broke. I'm breaking now. No. His conviction blazed through the bond. You're becoming. She wanted to believe him, but the pain was increasing, every cell screaming as it died and reformed. Her bones were dissolving, restructuring into something denser. Her muscles tore and rewove themselves with threads of light. Even her heart was changing its rhythm, splitting into dual chambers that beat in counterpoint. Let me show you something, Theron whispered through the bond. Suddenly she was seeing through his eyes, seeing herself on the bed. But it wasn't the skeletal girl he'd pulled from the dungeons. Her body was radiating light, so brilliant it should have blinded everyone in the room. But more than that, she was beautiful. Her hair had turned silver white, her skin gleamed like moonlight, and patterns of light traced beneath her skin like living tattoos. This is what you're becoming, he said. Not monster, not abomination, something magnificent. What if they're right? What if I am dangerous? Then we'll be dangerous together. His certainty shattered something in her, the last wall she'd built to contain her light. It exploded outward, not in destruction but in pure creation. Every plant in the room burst into bloom, wounds healed, old scars faded. Even Elder Morphia gasped as ancient aches disappeared. By the first moon, Lysander breathed. She's not just transforming, she's transforming everything around her. Sarah's violet eyes snapped open, truly open, and the world flooded in with crystalline clarity. She could see everything, every mote of dust, every breath, every heartbeat in the castle. But more than that, she could see the connections between all living things, threads of light binding every soul. Hello, little star, Theron said, and his voice carried harmonics she'd never heard before. She sat up, marveling at how easy movement was now. Her body felt perfect. Not weak, not broken, but absolutely right for the first time in her life. How long? She asked, then stopped. Her voice had changed too richer, layered with power. 3 days, Lysander said, approaching cautiously. May I examine you? She nodded, watching in fascination as he cast diagnostic spells. Each one hit her and refracted into prismatic light. Incredible. Your blood is half light, half something I've never seen. Your bones are reinforced with condensed moonlight. And your heart. He stepped back. You have 2 hearts. One pumps regular blood. One circulates pure energy. 2 hearts? Sarah pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the dual rhythm. One for your human side, one for what you've become, Elder Morphia said. You truly are the bridge prophesied. Which means, a bell tolled, deep and ominous. What is that? Sarah asked. Theron's face went grim. The council summons. They've called an emergency session. About me? About us. He helped her stand, steadying her when she wobbled on newly strengthened legs. They're going to challenge the mating again. But the Genesis Stone proved you're my mate, yes. But now they know what you're becoming, and they're terrified. His jaw tightened. Gavril has been spreading fear through the court. Half believe you're our salvation. The other half think you're our doom. Another bell toll, more insistent. What happens if we don't go? They have the authority to exile us both. Theron cupped her face gently. But I need you to understand something. Whatever happens in that room, I will not let them take you from me again. Even if it means civil war. Sarah searched his eyes, seeing the truth there. He would burn the kingdom down before letting them separate them. Then we face them together, she said. But as they prepared to leave, Captain Darius burst through the door, blood streaming from a gash on his forehead. Your Majesty, the lower chambers, something's wrong. The other prisoners, the ones kept near where we found the Queen, they're changing. The screaming echoed up from the depths like a chorus of the damned. How many? Theron demanded as they ran through the castle corridors, Sarah keeping pace despite her still adjusting body. 7 that we found, Darius gasped. Maybe more. The old dungeons go deeper than we thought. Sarah's newly enhanced senses picked up what the others couldn't, not just screams of pain but of transformation. The same agony she'd just experienced multiplied. They're lightcasters, she breathed. They're all lightcasters. Theron's head snapped toward her. That's not possible. The last lightcaster died decades ago. That's what they told you. Her voice turned bitter. Just like they told you the dungeons were empty. They descended the same stairs Theron had taken to find her. But this time, instead of stopping at her former cell, they continued deeper. The air grew thick with power light magic clashing violently with the darkness. The first cell they reached contained a boy, maybe 13, convulsing on the floor as silver light poured from his eyes. Help him. Sarah moved instinctively toward the cell. Don't. Darius grabbed her arm. He attacked 3 guards. His light burns anyone who gets close. Not me, Sarah said softly. She pulled free and approached the cell. The boy's light, which had been crackling wildly, suddenly calmed as she drew near. Sister? He whispered in a broken voice. Are you like me? Yes, she said, reaching through the bars. The moment their hands touched, his chaotic light stabilized, flowing into harmony with hers. What's your name? Kael. They took me when I was 8. Said my parents were dead. Said I was the last. Tears streamed down his face. But there are others. 7 others down here. We could hear each other crying through the stones. Rage built in Sarah's chest, not her own gentle light, but something fiercer. The Genesis power stirring. Show me the others, she commanded. Over the next hour, they discovered the truth. 8 Lightcaster children and young adults, the oldest, perhaps 25, all imprisoned in the deepest dungeons. All told the same story: family murdered, taken when their light manifested, told they were the last of their kind. Why keep them? Theron's voice was deadly quiet as they stood before the last cell, where a girl barely older than 16 huddled in the corner, her light flickering weakly. Why not just kill them? Elder Morphia, who had followed them down, answered grimly. Because Lightcaster blood is powerful. Harvested correctly, it can enhance Wolfsbane, create weapons, fuel dark magic. They were being farmed. The girl in the cell whimpered, pressing herself further into the corner. Look at me, Sarah said gently. The girl raised her head, revealing violet eyes that shifted to silver when afraid. You're safe now, I promise. That's what they said when they took me, the girl whispered, right before they killed my mother. Something snapped in Sarah. The careful control she'd maintained over her transformation shattered. Light exploded from her, not gentle healing light, but something ancient and furious. The Genesis power in its raw form. Every lock in the dungeon dissolved. Every chain crumbled to rust. The Lightcaster prisoners stumbled from their cells, drawn to her like moths to flame. Sarah, Theron said carefully. She could hear the alarm in his voice, feel his wolf's unease through their bond. They tortured children, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the stone walls tremble. For years, decades, while everyone above lived their lives, these children rotted in darkness. I didn't know, but someone did. She turned to face him, and he took an involuntary step back. Her eyes were pure light now, no iris or pupil visible. Your father knew. The council knew. How many others knew and said nothing? Before he could answer, bells began tolling above, not the measured summons from before, but the rapid clanging of alarm. The council, Darius said, checking the communication crystal at his belt. They've sealed the throne room. They're voting on... His face went pale. They're voting on whether to execute all Lightcasters as threats to the kingdom. Including me? Sarah asked, though she already knew the answer. Especially you. They're calling you the corrupted queen. They say your influence caused the Genesis stone, that you're spreading a plague of light through the castle. The young Lightcasters pressed closer to Sarah, seeking protection. She could feel their terror, their desperate hope that she could save them when no one else had. Take them somewhere safe, she told Theron. The infirmary, your private quarters, anywhere but here. What are you going to do? She met his eyes, and for the first time since her transformation, she let him see the full extent of what she'd become. Not just healed, not just transformed, but reborn as something that could stand against the darkness that had tortured innocence for generations. I'm going to the throne room. Sarah, no. If you confront the council now, while your power is unstable, my power isn't unstable, she said quietly. It's angry. There's a difference. She started toward the stairs, but Theron caught her arm. Through their bond, she felt his fear not of her, but for her. You could die, he said. I died the moment they put me in chains 6 years ago. Everything since has been resurrection. She touched his face gently, her light-traced fingers leaving brief patterns on his skin. Trust me, as I trusted you. He searched her eyes for a long moment, then nodded. Darius, get the young ones to the infirmary. Post our most trusted guards. No one else enters. Yes, Your Majesty. As the captain began organizing the rescued prisoners, Theron took Sarah's hand. If you're going to confront the council, you're not going alone. They'll use you against me. Threaten your throne, your position. Let them try. His eyes blazed gold, his wolf rising to match her light. They want to know what happens when wolf and light unite. Let's show them. Together they ascended from the dungeons, power crackling between them like lightning. Behind them, 8 young lightcasters watched with desperate hope. Above them, the council waited with weapons drawn. And somewhere between, the Genesis stone pulsed with anticipation, knowing that the reckoning 6 years in the making was finally at hand. The throne room doors were barred from within, but Sarah simply placed her palm against the ancient wood and pushed. The doors didn't open, they disintegrated, crumbling to ash that swirled around her and Theron as they entered. The council had formed a circle, wolfsbane-laced weapons drawn. At its center stood Gavriel, holding a black crystal that pulsed with malevolent energy. The Voidstone, Elder Morphia gasped from behind them. It consumes light. They must have been saving it. Stand down, Your Majesty, Gavriel said coldly. This creature has corrupted you. We can still save you if you step aside now. Corrupted? Theron's laugh was dark. She opened my eyes. Do you want to tell him, Gavriel, or shall I? The High Counselor's jaw tightened. I don't know what lies she's filled your head with. The dungeons, Sarah said, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. 8 children in chains, tortured, harvested. For how long, Gavriel? Murmurs rippled through the assembled nobles. Not all of them, Sarah realized, had known. Necessary sacrifices, Gavriel said. Their blood helped us create weapons against our enemies. Their suffering protected the kingdom. Children, Theron snarled. You tortured children. Lightcaster children. Abominations. Just like her. Gavriel raised the Voidstone higher. But we can end this plague now. The stone will consume every trace of light in the kingdom. Including the Genesis stone? Elder Morphia asked sharply. The symbol of unity you celebrated 3 days ago? Gavriel hesitated, and in that moment Sarah understood. You're afraid, she said, stepping forward. Several guards raised their weapons, but she ignored them. You're terrified that if light and wolf can coexist, if we can create instead of destroy, then everything you've built on hatred becomes meaningless. Silence. Gavriel activated the Voidstone. Black tendrils shot toward Sarah, seeking her light. She didn't move, didn't flinch, just let them come. The darkness touched her skin and shattered like glass against steel. Unbelievable, someone breathed. No, Sarah said, her dual hearts beating in perfect rhythm. Inevitable. She raised her hand, and light bloomed, not the gentle silver of before, but something new. Silver threaded with gold, light married to shadow. Genesis power in its truest form. The Voidstone began to crack. You forget, she continued, walking steadily toward Gavriel as he backed away. I spent 6 years in absolute darkness. 6 years learning that light doesn't come from outside, it comes from within. Your void doesn't scare me. I've lived in it. The stone shattered, its destruction sending several council members to their knees. Now, Theron's voice rang out, while we have your attention, let's discuss the children in the dungeons. And the ledgers Captain Darius found in your private study, Gavril. The ones detailing exactly how much gold you made selling Lightcaster blood to our enemies. Gasps echoed through the room. Even Gavril's supporters stepped away from him. Lies, Gavril snarled, but his scent had changed. Fear sweat, bitter and acrid. The truth, a new voice said from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Kale, the 13-year-old Lightcaster boy, standing with the other 7 rescued prisoners. They should have been in the infirmary, but they'd come anyway, drawn by the confrontation that would determine their fate. I remember you, Kale said, pointing at Gavril. You were there when they took me. You told my parents I'd died in the fire. Then you sold my blood to the Crimson Pack for their war efforts. And me, the 16-year-old girl stepped forward. You harvested my tears for poison. Said they were especially potent when I cried for my mother. One by one, they spoke, their testimonies painting a picture of systematic horror that had been hidden beneath the castle for decades. Enough. Gavril pulled a blade from his robes, not wolfsbane, but something worse. The metal gleamed sickly green, coated with concentrated Lightcaster blood corrupted by dark magic. He lunged not for Sarah, but for Theron. Time slowed. Sarah saw the trajectory, saw her mate's eyes widen, saw death approaching on a poisoned edge. She didn't think. She simply moved. The blade pierced her chest, sliding between her ribs, with surgical precision. But instead of pain, she felt completion. No! Theron's roar shook the castle. Sarah looked down at the blade protruding from her chest, then at Gavril's shocked face. You missed, she said softly. I struck your heart. My human heart. She pulled the blade out, no blood following its exit. The wound sealed instantly, her dual heart system compensating. But I have another one now. A gift from the transformation you forced me to endure. Light exploded from the wound, pure, undiluted Genesis power. It struck Gavril, and for a moment, he glowed like a star. Then he began to change. Not dying, transforming. His wolf features softened, shifted, and became something between. When the light faded, he stood there looking lost, his wolf and human sides no longer at war but merged into something new. What did you do to me? He whispered. I gave you what you feared most, Sarah replied. Understanding. You can feel them now, can't you? Every Lightcaster you hurt, every child you tortured. Their pain is part of you now. Gavril fell to his knees, sobbing. The weight of his crimes crashed over him with his new empathic abilities. Around the room, weapons clattered to the floor. The remaining council members knelt not in submission, but in awe. The bridge, Elder Morphia said into the silence. She really is the bridge, not just between light and wolf, but between justice and mercy. Sarah swayed, exhaustion finally catching up to her transformed body. Theron caught her, pulling her against his chest. Through their bond, she felt his relief, his pride, and his overwhelming love. The vote, someone said hesitantly. We still need to vote on the Lightcaster's fate. No, Theron said firmly. We need to vote on something else. On whether to embrace what we're becoming a united kingdom of wolf and light, or remain prisoners of our past. The vote, when it came, was unanimous. Even Gavril, through his tears of remorse, raised his hand in favor. 3 weeks had passed since the council's vote, and the kingdom was transforming as rapidly as Sarah had. She stood on the highest tower of the castle, watching as Wolf and Lightcaster worked together in the courtyard below. Kale was teaching young wolf pups how to see in complete darkness using inner light, while warrior wolves showed the older Lightcasters defensive combat techniques. Gavril had retreated to the mountain monastery, seeking redemption through solitude and sending daily letters of apology to his victims. You're brooding again, Theron said, approaching from behind and wrapping his arms around her waist. Not brooding, thinking. She leaned back against his chest. It's too easy, too quiet. The council's acceptance, Gavril's transformation, something's wrong. Through their bond, she felt his unease matching hers. You feel it too? The calm before, a piercing shriek cut through the air. Not human, not wolf, but something else entirely. Sarah's dual hearts, stammered as recognition flooded through her. No, she breathed. They're supposed to be extinct. What's supposed to be extinct? Another shriek, closer. Then shadows began flowing across the sun, massive wings blocking out the light. Void Seekers. Elder Morphia's voice cracked as she burst onto the tower. The shadow predators of ancient times. Someone's awakened them. The first Void Seeker landed in the courtyard, a creature of living shadow with wings that absorbed light, eyes of pure darkness, and claws that could tear through both flesh and spirit. It headed straight for Kale. Sarah didn't think. She leaped from the tower, her transformation completing mid-fall. Not into a wolf. She had no wolf form. Instead, she became something else. A being of pure light-given form, wings of silver-gold energy spreading from her back. She struck the Void Seeker moments before it reached Kale, her light form burning against its shadow flesh. They rolled across the courtyard, locked in combat that was both physical and metaphysical. More Void Seekers descended, dozens of them, each targeting a lightcaster with predatory precision. "Protect the children." Theron's command rang out as he shifted to his massive wolf form, leaping to defend the young lightcasters. But the Void Seekers kept coming, and Sarah realized with growing horror that they were losing. For every one they destroyed, 2 more appeared. The lightcasters were exhausting themselves, their light dimming with each attack. "Into the castle," she ordered, her voice carrying on waves of power. Everyone inside. As they retreated, Sarah saw him, a figure standing on the opposite tower, cloaked in darkness. He raised his hand, and she recognized the gesture, the way shadow flowed from his fingers. "Father," she whispered, her human form reasserting in shock. King Marcus Nightingale, the man who'd supposedly died when she was 16, stood alive and commanding an army of nightmares. "Hello, daughter." His voice carried on shadows. "I've come to correct my mistake." "Your mistake?" Rage built in her chest. "Abandoning me? Letting them imprison me?" "No." He descended from the tower, shadows carrying him like wings. "My mistake was letting you live when your light first manifested. But I was weak then, still believing love mattered more than purity." The truth hit her like physical blow. "You're the one who turned me in. I tried to kill you myself first," he said conversationally, as if discussing weather. "But your mother intervened. She died protecting you, the fool. So I let the wolves take you, thinking their dungeons would finish what I couldn't." "Why?" The word tore from her throat. "Because you're an abomination. Light and shadow were never meant to mix. Yet somehow your mother, a pure lightcaster, bore a child with darkness in her veins. My shadow." He pulled back his hood, revealing eyes of pure void. "I am the last Shadow King, and you are my greatest shame." Understanding crashed over Sarah, her dual nature, her ability to survive in darkness, the way she'd transformed differently than pure lightcasters. It all made sense. "That's why I could destroy the Void Stone," she said. "Why the darkness couldn't consume me. I'm both." "You're neither," Marcus snarled. "You're a corruption of both bloodlines, and your existence allowed this." He gestured at the castle where Wolf and Lightcaster hid together. "This perversion of natural order." "You mean unity?" "I mean weakness." Shadows exploded from him, racing toward her. Sarah raised her hands, light blooming to meet darkness. Where they collided, Genesis power erupted, neither light nor shadow, but something beyond both. "That cannot be." Marcus staggered back. "The Genesis power is a myth." "The Genesis power is evolution," Elder Morphia said, appearing in the courtyard despite the danger. "Light and shadow were once one force, separated by fear and hatred. Your daughter is the living proof they can be, reunited. Then she'll die as proof they should stay apart." Marcus unleashed the full force of his shadow magic. Not just Void Seekers now, but waves of pure darkness that devoured everything they touched. The castle walls began to crumble. The rescued lightcasters screamed as their light was forcibly drained. Sarah felt each attack like physical wounds, her friend's pain echoing through her enhanced senses. She tried to fight back, but she was one person against an army, light against an ocean of shadow. "I'm not strong enough." "Yes, you are." Theron's voice in her mind, fierce and certain. "But you're fighting alone. Stop trying to be either light or shadow. Be both. Be everything." "I don't know how." Then let me show you. She felt him approach, still in wolf form but somehow more. The Genesis Stone's power had changed him too, she realized. He wasn't just wolf anymore, he was wolf touched by light. Together, he said, shifting to human form beside her. She took his hand, and power erupted between them, not just their individual strengths but something multiplicative. The mating bond, the Genesis connection, the unity of opposites, all combining into something that made Marcus step back. That's not possible. Wolf and light and shadow can't. Can't? Sarah laughed, power coursing through her veins like liquid starlight. Father, I spent 6 years in a dungeon being told what I can't do. Let me show you what's possible. She reached not just for her light, but for the shadow inheritance he'd cursed her with. For the first time, she embraced both sides of her nature fully. What emerged wasn't light or shadow, but something that made the Void Seekers freeze mid-flight. Their creator's power turned against them, infused with light that made it beyond their nature to resist. One by one, the shadow creatures began to transform, not destroyed but changed, becoming something between light and dark, shadow and substance. No! Marcus raised his hands to reassert control. But the transformed creatures didn't obey. They couldn't. They were no longer his. They were hers. This is what unity looks like, Sarah said, stepping forward as her father backed away. Not the destruction of one side or the other, but the evolution of both into something greater. You're naive. The world isn't ready. Then we'll make it ready. Theron stood beside her, his presence solid as mountain stone. Starting here, starting now. Marcus looked between them, his daughter glowing with transcendent power. The Wolf King who'd claimed her, the transformed Void Seekers now circling protectively around the Lightcaster children. You're my greatest shame, he said, his voice breaking. Then quieter. And my greatest achievement. Your mother would be proud of your strength, even as I curse it. I forgive you, Sarah said simply. He froze mid-retreat. What? For abandoning me. For the dungeons. For Mother. I forgive you. Light tears tracked down her cheeks. Because holding on to that darkness only feeds the void you serve. And I choose light. I choose shadow. I choose everything. For a moment, just a moment, she saw something flicker in his void eyes. Regret? Pain? Hope? Perhaps, he whispered. Perhaps the world is ready after all. Then he was gone, dissolving into shadows. But she could feel it, he hadn't fled. He'd simply let go. Released his hold on the darkness that had consumed him for so long. Sarah collapsed to her knees, exhaustion crashing over her. The transformation, the battle, the emotional revelation, it was too much. I've got you, Theron murmured, gathering her into his arms. Around them, the kingdom began to emerge from hiding. Wolves and Lightcasters, united against a common enemy, victorious through cooperation. The transformed Void Seekers perched peacefully on the castle walls, no longer predators but guardians. Is it over? Kale asked, approaching tentatively. Sarah looked at the boy, then at the Genesis Stone, pulsing with new patterns of power, light, and shadow woven together. No, she said softly, but the hardest part is. What's the hardest part? She smiled, exhausted but genuine, choosing to trust, choosing to forgive, choosing to become more than what others say we must be. As Theron carried her inside, Sarah felt the kingdom's energy shifting, not just accepting the union of wolf and light, but embracing the integration of shadow too. The bridge had been built. Now came the harder task, convincing the rest of the world to cross it. 3 months later, the wedding took place at dawn, when light and shadow danced together in perfect balance. Sarah stood before the Genesis Stone wearing a gown that seemed woven from starlight and shadow. Beside her, Theron wore the traditional Alpha King regalia, modified with threads of silver light and shadow running through the fabric. Do you accept this bond? Elder Morphia asked, though the question was merely formality. I do, they said in unison. The Genesis Stone pulsed, and for a moment, everyone assembled wolf, Lightcaster, and the new shadow-touched beings saw the truth. Threads of energy connecting every living thing. a web of unity that had always existed. As Theron kissed his bride, the sun fully rose, but Sarah kept her eyes open, watching how light and shadow danced together in the new dawn. The real challenge was just beginning, but for now, with her mate's arms around her and their people cheering, Sarah allowed herself to believe in the impossible.